Hi guys, it's Andrew from Canada with one of the best audio production and music mixing courses. The idea of my course is not only full-blown education on all subjects of audio engineering and music production, but also myth-busting core idea. This field is very snake oil. If you don't want to be misled and waste your next 10 years, and you want to learn top-notch stuff and very unique stuff, this course is for you. Free videos are just to get you interested. Real education is those full 80 lessons, or you can buy a group of lessons. Read the description or the first pinned comment on how to participate in my course, my credits, 240 all 5 stars reviews or 150 all 5 stars reviews verified by Google, and my contacts for any questions. I'm gonna show you all these differences today with all these harmonics and frequency curves, and I'm gonna show plugins versus these analog compressors actually, and they all claim it's authentic emulation. Their very first plugin was 1176 Legacy. This plugin is still available if you use any accelerator, special processor. Of course, in 2025 it makes no sense actually. Universal Audio definitely should stop doing it. They sell very expensive audio interfaces and satellite devices which cost a lot of money with integrated very weak processors. 2000. It sounds a bit more mid-rangey than analog and other Universal Audio 1176 compressors. This is actually a very interesting subject. I want to tell you this. You as an audio engineer, you may not know it because people think compressors is just for dynamics, EQ is just for frequency corrections. But people forget about timing. I hope you're gonna be thankful for this subject because it's super cool. What 1176 Legacy does, you apply compression and you emphasize special harmonics. It's number 3, so it will be the most prominent in the frequency response. In terms of how much 1176 emphasize either lower harmonic or higher harmonic, it will emphasize mostly 3rd, 5th, and 7th. So this compressor definitely will demonstrate this so-called odd harmonics emphasis. It's based on revision D. I already explained what revisions are. I explained it in the previous lesson. A lot of people make mistakes in measurements of harmonics. They try to use something like plugin doctor and stuff like this. They make so many mistakes, and this is why I don't suggest you to make all these measurements by yourself, especially if you're intermediate audio engineer or beginner. The next Universal Audio compressors which we know collection. They have 3 compressors, E, which is roughly revision D, Anniversary Edition, and Classic Blue Stripe compressor. So they have 3 plugins in one bundle. So 1176 revision E is the most popular probably, at least historically. Again, what's more popular doesn't mean better. E is for Europe, D is for the US and Canada. This is the plugin, as you can see. I'm gonna copy and paste from either notes to speed up a bit. What shocks me actually and surprises me completely. Harmonics gradually going down. What harmonics gradually going down means, you have fundamental tone, then second harmonic quieter than fundamental tone, third quieter than second, and every next harmonic quieter than previous one. So they have this sort of line of saturation for this compressor. And I'm completely shocked because a lot of plugin manufacturers absolutely don't have this content in their plugins, only this plugin has. Even previous generation of the same plugin of Universal Audio has completely different frequency content. 3rd, 5th, and 7th boosted, odd harmonics boosted. But over here you have gradually going down harmonics. Roughly speaking, actually all 3 plugins from this bundle have similar frequency content, gradually going down harmonics, while their predecessor had odd harmonics. And they all claim to be authentic emulation. Just imagine how Universal Audio promoted their 1176 in 2000. Is the most authentic emulation, you don't need analog devices anymore, is the most proper reproduction of real device. And I'm sure they said exactly the same in 2010 when this plugin came out. They said, it's exactly the same authentic emulation, blah blah blah. But harmonics, completely different, and plugins sound different. Legacy and this one sound different, to be honest. This one definitely sounds a bit bigger, a bit warmer, obviously due to different harmonic content. If you're curious how my real 1176s sound like, is Universal Audio, modern production. Universal Audio produces nowadays only one 1176 version, revision D. Both are revision D. They have similar sound and similar frequency content, even though a little bit of tolerance. Anyway, they're very similar. With a 5 dB of compression. So this is fundamental tone. right? Third, fifth, and seventh actually boosted. Like in a legacy plugin, actually. A legacy plugin still doesn't have this frequency response. They have completely different harmonic content and much more high harmonics. But my real compressor has this, and the boundary of measurement is minus 120 decibels over here, which means it's not like I don't see some harmonics because of the measurement was only for 70 decibels. It's 120 decibels. And this is the real frequency content with crystal LG settings. So I put attack at 3, release at 7. I set up input level until it gives me 5 dB roughly. I'm gonna show you this right now just for the sake of true comparison. So this is actually frequency response of this Universal Audio plugin. And there Universal Audio real 1176s, which is the same type, revision D. Revision E equals revision D. I make sure I match the volumes. Actually, volume was very close, as you can see. So measurement is quite the same. This is real 1176. Now I activate white color, which is a plugin. So this is a plugin. This is real one. This is a plugin. And all these boosts will influence real harmonics of your real instruments. They all will sound different with the plugin in comparison to the real device. Again, my point is I'm not saying difference is too crazy, and I'm not gonna say this plugin sucks and absolutely impossible to use, you know. You can use it. It's a mixing tool. Who knows, maybe you even prefer this tone over the real device. I'm not. But anyway, what I'm gonna say, this is a good mixing tool, but they claim it's a real emulation of 1176 Revision E. Who knows, I don't see it. Even other emulations of the same company, also Revision D, Revision E equals Revision D, their previous predecessor, have different frequency content, boosting odd harmonics. This one has gradually going down harmonics. This is pretty strange. If you ask me if I like this plugin, I was using it for many years. I like this plugin. If you count from 0 to 10, I would say I like this plugin at 6 out of 10. The reason why I don't apply this plugin in real projects right now, it's mostly because of it sounds somehow pixelized. It has all the something on the top, you know, maybe even related to this particular harmonic structure, and it sounds a bit like woody, plasticky sort of. It doesn't have this like smooth and clarity and smoothness of real 1176 or some other plugins emulations. It sounds a bit kind of like sore throat. I apply it on my sound and it start to sound like this. It's a subtle thing. It's mostly for very trained ears. But from the other side, when people say, nobody will hear it in the mix, I absolutely don't agree with this concept. You an audio engineer. If nobody hears anything in the mix, why you even care about plugins? Don't even process anything, you know. Throw stock plugins of your DAW, don't buy any plugins, because nobody hears anything in the mix. I'm a dedicated person. I really live my life in audio. For me, every little piece is important. When you say difference is 1%, you're kind of right. But if this 1% literally makes me not using this plugin at all, this 1% becomes like gigantic 90%, you know what I mean? Where this compressor definitely has odd harmonics in all-to-one mode. Overall tone, I'm gonna say, I definitely want to say it's a subjective, it's for me, because each one needs only specific tool. There is no right or wrong. It's proper tool for the proper source. So I'm gonna say subjective and a bit pixelized. It means in a sound like little pixels, you know. It's not so smooth and clean. It's like a photograph, but with this very small resolution. You stretch it on the full screen and you see those like micro squares, sort of a digital dirt on your picture. It has little bit of it. I don't mean this compressor has something like aliasing. Actually, this compressor has built-in anti-aliasing filter. Let's move out this vocal, let's control dynamics of this vocal. It's the best project for education. Vocalist over here sounding pretty dirty. It's very dirty recording made by Telefunken company to demonstrate their microphones. It's a handheld microphone, vocal really uneven. Treating people just like pawns and shit. This plugin definitely can do it. I'm gonna tell you, some plugins completely suck in dynamics control. Who knows how they emulated? For example, crystal LG signature plugins from Waves have very strange dynamics actually in it, in comparison to other plugins and in comparison to the real 1176. We're gonna come to those plugins. I'm not gonna just say it, I'm gonna demonstrate. So maximum note PON will be 10 dB. When compressor compresses less, it will be just 5 dB. Treating people just like So before...
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people.
3 normal, treating, already jumping out.
Treating people just.
People. I'm gonna put vocal just a bit quieter actually without compressor because it's not fair to compare louder vocal versus quieter vocal.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Completely fluctuating vocal in the mix.
Treating people.
People.
Treating people just like pawns.
Compressor not working right now. And pawn jumping out of the mix with the compressor.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Yeah, pretty great job dynamically, but it has this harsh like...
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Just like, listen to this.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
If you apply a de-esser, of course you're gonna make it quieter, but this saturation in this already will be there, because compressor anyway will put those harmonics to those sibilances. The second plugin from this bundle, called 1176 Anniversary Edition, they claim it's a real UAD, as I already explained what UAD is, predecessor of Universal Audio. Is basically the same thing, still company of Bill Putnam. They made 1176s just a bit in a different way, obviously, in 70s. So it's a vintage reissue sort of UAD. A lot of people actually claim it's still not like UAD. This compressor has extra features. First of all, it has slow mode, those 30 milliseconds attack. See, I already gave you those guides when to use long attack, and I claim it should be roughly around 30 milliseconds, and when to use short attack, roughly around 1 millisecond or a little bit below. As you can see, even Universal Audio releasing this compressor recognize that their compressor cannot handle those like punch, so that's why they introduced this new feature. It doesn't mean this compressor sounds exactly the same like everything else. You can say, oh, if it has this feature, maybe we don't need SSL channel compressors anymore. But it's completely different compressors. This has feedback circuitry, SSL doesn't have. SSL is a feed-forward compressor. You know, they have different detectors, they just literally work a bit differently. 1176 may have shorter release, SSL cannot have as short release as this one. Also, interestingly, it has 2:1 ratio. So it can be like a bit softer, a bit keeping more dynamics, vocal will be fluctuating still, but it may sound just smoother and a bit clearer with a bit different harmonics content. 2:1 has different harmonics. 4:1 already different harmonics, you know. So it's not only about what even out your vocal more, it's about how you want to saturate your sound. You have sea salt and salt. 20:1 it's a pepper. All to one it's a hot sauce. You know what I mean? Different flavors. This compressor has also gradually going down harmonics. It's not 100% print of the previous compressor to this compressor. They very similar, which is strange. If you compare Universal Audio plugins from 2000, from 2010, harmonic content can be different while inside of this bundle, even though there are very different compressors over here. The one which is supposed to be sounding completely different, let's say this one, and this one, they have everything in common. It just means it's not about what compressors they emulate, it's about how they emulate it. Just because of these three compressors were emulated at the same time around 2010, they have very similar characteristics. And compressor which they emulated, let's say in 2000, has completely different characteristics. Now listen to it. My suggestion to you, consider every plugin just as a tool itself. Don't imagine these plugins like 100% copies of real compressors. You should look at this compressor and you just should say, this is the compressor I have, I apply it on my instruments and this is how it sounds. And then decide where it's suitable, where it's not suitable. Don't apply it just because of it's authentically emulated some famous compressor. You know what I mean? Gradually going down harmonics, while the real one has odd harmonics and less high harmonics than these ones. All three plugins of these bundles actually have very similar saturation content, with micro differences. All three compressors have quite a lot of those like high harmonics over here. My real compressors, as you saw, they have just second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth harmonic. And that's it, they sound very clear on the top. Universal Audio not only have gradually going down harmonics instead of odd harmonics, but also many micro harmonics over here. Let's set up anniversary edition compressor. I go with 4-1 to keep. I would say it has more masculine voice.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
This one a bit more airy, a bit more natural, you know. Again, it's very subjective over here. To be honest, the difference between different plugins and real compressors sometimes much more noticeable than between these two plugins. 1176 Revision A, it's still gradually going down harmonics. I don't know what happened, maybe Universal Audio modified it a bit, maybe I'm crazy, who knows, but I remember it had more high harmonics back in the days. Recently I remeasure it, now they look very similar to Revision E. The difference between Revision A and Revision D is supposed to be much more noticeable than on these plugins. I definitely should mention it. In terms of frequency response, by the way, these compressors sound tighter on the ends, more present, but it's not visible on the frequency analyzer. It's more like a feel, and it's just tighter. That's why you have a bit more highs left, a bit more presence due to mirror frequency effect. I definitely should make that Revision A sometimes feels like shorter attack. With the same settings, either due to tolerance or whatever, it feels like it's a bit shorter attack. Let's set up this compressor for this vocal. Treating people, a bit more punchy on this compressor and a bit smoother on this compressor.
Treating people just like.
Listen to the word people. First compressor.
Treating people.
People.
Treating people. Treating people.
People more compressed, you know, like more smoothed out. So this compressor somehow feels maybe tolerance or just due to different design a little bit, just smoother. I all the time notice it on drums, for example, if I use Revision A. Revision A is a rare thing. In fact, Revision A usually is Revision AB, in fact. So I'm gonna say sometimes it sounds quite thin on some sources. Interestingly, if we can smooth out these transients like t and people with this compressor, so we put shorter attack, let's say at 12 o'clock over here instead of 3.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
We definitely can smooth out those. Now, I would say subjectively this compressor sounds a bit ballsier. It sounds more like treating people, while this one sounds more like treating people, you know, like open, more open sounding.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Now this one definitely sounds brighter and more bitey on the transients. This is another very important lesson I want to give you over here. Just ask yourself, if position on attack 7 is almost instant attack and position 1 is 0.8, we have very short attack in any position on this knob. Now imagine I rotated from 3 harsh and punchy transients little bit to the middle like this. It still basically is almost like 0.6 versus 0.5. But for my ears it sounds like gigantic difference. This one sounds like clicky and punchy, more like harsh on the transients. Crazy, I mean little rotation and it already creates gigantic difference. The reason for it's a special curve of attack related to the design and type of this compressor. Let's have some fun. Universal Audio suggests to put release at 12 o'clock to start with. Oh, really? Let's try 12 o'clock release on this vocal.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Listen to without the interface. Listen carefully. Treating people. Treating people.
Treating people.
See, I should not trust the manuals sometimes, and their manuals contain some opinions of many audio engineers. Eventually, when you apply their opinions, it sounds like this. You should think for yourself. Or at least I created more appropriate guides how to really apply attack and release in previous lessons. 1176 FET. Eventually, I decided not to buy it for myself, even though I can easily afford it, but having 20 different 1176 plugins, I just realized it's just another authentic emulation, which sounds very in its own way, you know. I actually thought it's just reproduction of Legacy, but actually it almost sounds like older Legacy, but it anyway sounds somehow in its own way. Maybe they just added anti-aliasing filter or something. Gradually going down. Harmonics. But in the mix, this compressor sounds like really tight. It's thinner. Maybe it's a bit clearer. In one of my mixes where I compared some of my favorite vocal compressors versus this compressor, I specifically put like 20 different compressors on my vocal, and I was creating sort of a shootout between compressors. This compressor sounded somehow very small in my mix. Your performance like, you know, like, But again, I'm not gonna advocate this phrase at all. It really based on just one example. Usually I put like strong statements only about something what I experienced multiple times. As I'm the most crazy tester, if a mental facility knew how many tests I make day by day in the nights and everything, they completely already put me in some cage and they would lose a key from this cage because I'm the craziest psycho in comparisons, in audio tests and everything like this. So, as I didn't really play with this compressor for so many times on different sources, different mixes, I think I don't have any rights to claim anything over here. As it's Universal Audio, let's be honest, all four plugins sound very, very, very similar. Sounds not necessarily worse than, let's say, this one.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
It definitely has this like presence, you know, this one. Maybe this is what made this compressor thin in my other mix on my vocal. Recently Universal Audio released this plugin, so it's a part of a channel strip. One of these which is looking like this in my second studio, Studio B. I use it for recording mostly. I like this preamplifier. It's an optical compressor based on T4 optical element. They call it over here LA2A. It's not really LA2A because this compressor has one tube less, and this one tube makes the whole difference between real LA2A, which is over there on the top, $5,000, and this channel strip, which is more like $2,000. But it's similar style compressor, optical compressor. We use right now this one in 1176 mode. A module called 6176. I actually had two of these back in the days for comparisons, for tests, and I know this stuff. So definitely, and when you compare it to other ones, all 1176s sound less fat.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
It's already less present and warmer and fatter, but on the other side, unfortunately, it sounds muddier. The reason for it is 610 preamplifier, which is integrated in this channel strip. You can make it a bit more transparent, but it's still gonna be the same, just a bit less muddy. For this, you need to use input gain less, let's say -5 instead of 0. You put level down, so instead of 6 standard position, more like 4 or something. Line input kind of, you can even bypass EQ if you like. It actually affects the tone a bit, but actually it has a small transformer, modified transformer in this channel strip. A lot of people say, yeah, it's exactly the same. What are you talking about? I have these two compressors, I have these channel strips in two versions, I mean two different ones to exclude any tolerance or differences. And I compare these two versus these two. Real ones, you know, and they don't sound exactly the same. Not on this plugin, but on real device. You can send the signal to the return of this channel strip, which means you kind of like avoid tube preamp and you go directly to the compressors, and they still don't sound exactly the same like these two. The ones that have big transformer, output transformer.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
On this vocal, actually, considering this vocal sounds harsher and noisier and more like annoying, this plugin actually shines better. It smooths out the tone due to its preamp. As you can see, I lowered down its too muddy sort of settings. I make it clearer due to different gain staging on the input. And this compressor right now actually does pretty not too bad job on this vocal. So if you deactivate this EQ, you're gonna make it even more transparent. With EQ sounds fatter.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Ooh, kind of in the vocal, you know, appears with this EQ on instead of bypass. 1176 with a tube color, basically, this plugin is. Actually, when I use this channel strip, it actually didn't give me this feel of muddy sound. This plugin definitely gives me the feel of muddy sound. If I recorded my vocal with the microphone, maybe I had a bit too much proximity effect or room resonating with some low mid, those room resonances. This plugin actually sucks on those, you know. Obviously you need much more equalization or at least re-recording or changing to the other compressor. 6176 is clearer on top and upper mid, pushed than 1176 Revision E. So if you push the signal, what I mean by push, you literally, let's say, use more aggressive settings. You use higher ratio, let's say 20:1 or something. You put more on the input of this compressor. You compress not by 5 dB, but let's say by 15 dB. In this case, this plugin sounds clearer than older Universal Audio plugins. And also, I need to say that tone is just recommendation, which I already said multiple times. Let's put it in the text. I say the tone of a plugin, it's a plugin maker by 70% and only 30% coming from the model they emulate. Plugin manufacturers try to make it like 100% because they claim it's authentic emulation. Like their plugin sounds like real device. It's only by 30%. 70% coming from the tone of a plugin manufacturer. I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna show you multiple examples right now, and then I'm gonna actually point out nuances which always related to special plugin manufacturers. Wave sounds in this way because of this. Universal Audio always sounds in this way because of this. You can say their plugin sounds like inspired by those real devices. So Wave CLA76, they came to Chris Rodelgi, to his studio and said, Chris Rodelgi, let's emulate your compressors. So it's a black phase, this is Blue Stripe. I use his settings, 3, release 7, 4:1. VU meter is not real on this plugin at all. The needle of this VU meter jumps back and forth too quickly. My real 1176s don't do anything like this.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Waves in general sounds very bitey, very tight and very bright in your face. By feel, I don't mean you potentially can measure it and maybe frequency analyzer will show you something like this. It just feels like this because this compressor is made by waves.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
It doesn't have this ballsy fundamental tone. Even this one, which we considered before like as a brighter version, let's say, it has this like treating people, fundamental sort of a chest resonator of the vocalist. When I switch from this compressor to this compressor, it completely disappears and vocal becomes very thin, but at the same time, very transparent.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Universal Audio definitely has this more low mid, more like fatness and density in the tone. So the question is why? Before I explain it, let me put a couple of nuances. One of very typical thing for Waves, what it makes it different from all other plugin manufacturers, Waves always have second harmonic more prominent than some other plugin manufacturer or real devices. For example, this is Blackface Waves plugin, right? So as you can see, second harmonic for some reason boosted. And this is the frequency response of real 1176s which stay over there. As you can see, second harmonic pretty always lower than third harmonic. So it's a third, fifth, seventh. Waves, as you can see, always has the second harmonic, even if it's a bit lower than third, it's anyway somewhere nearby. Most of Waves plugins like this. While those devices they emulate actually usually don't have second harmonic as prominent. Also, Waves have usually like a lot of high harmonics, like over here, as you can see. If you ask me why I don't use Plugin Doctor, because first of all, I use special encoding, it's non-linear distortion. Secondly, I want to see real time what I modify and how in real time those harmonic changes. I don't want just to see some print screen. I show you some print screens, but when I measure, I use multiple my own techniques. This plugin has the influence of Chris Rodelgi chain. I explained it in the very first free lesson. Remember lesson number 1, which is for free. I mentioned that Chris Rodelgi boosts high frequencies all the way up and how it's even possible, because his console and everything what connected to his master bus make everything like with a little roll off on the top. So when you boost highs but you still have this natural roll off on the top, you seems like don't boost highs as much. You can see gigantic roll off in the frequency response of this compressor. It's just because of they didn't disconnect this compressor from his SSL console when they measured his compressor to make a plugin out of his compressor. So it's not, it looks maybe a little bit, but in fact it's gigantic one. It's more like this roll-off. Check it out. Chris Ordelji released his master bus plugin to emulate his master bus with waves. Again, if you ask me if his mixes and his console sound really like those waves plugins, absolutely not. But at least it shows you some taste of his console to some extent. Waves anyway sound much tighter, much fizzier, and much brighter. And again, if you're a new guy, a beginner or intermediate audio engineer, and you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. If you go to my course and you go lesson by lesson, starting from lesson 1, which is free one, you anyway gonna know all this. It's not a course just for advanced audio engineers who already understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about stuff what I already talked about in previous lessons. So it's a natural snowball. I record in one lesson per week. And multiple people with me going week by week, they buy one lesson per week. And they already know what I'm talking about when I show something like this. You can start from lesson 1 and buy one lesson per week, or you can buy a group of lessons. If I already recorded all 80 lessons, then decide if you want lesson by lesson or buy all 80 lessons. Or a group of subjects and topics you want. It's a plugin which contains, check it out, only EQ, lows and highs, compressor, master bus compressor, and drive. If I deactivate, now it has nothing to do with Chris Ordelji console. Now you activate some processor, you activate this treble slider, and as you can see, it's exactly the same high frequency roll-off I'm talking about, which exactly the same on this compressor of Chris Ordelji, right? So that's why with this high frequency roll-off, he can boost much more high frequencies with high shelf SSL 4000E equalizer black knob than you can do in digital DW with your equalizers. So it's a trick by Chris Ordelji when he says, be brave, boost high frequencies as much as you want. Of course, for him, with this roll-off, it's easy to boost additional high frequencies. Waves plugin in general, some people claim it has fizzy tone. I had multiple students when I back in the days was teaching in real time, people literally refused using Waves plugins. They were so haters of Waves plugin. However, I never was like this. I always felt like Waves plugins are good when they are good. If you have muddy instrument, unclear, and you want like emphasis and clarity in the mix, Waves plugins supposed to be working, you know. Especially affects S. It affects not your S, I mean, it affects your sibilances. Chris Ordelji favorite compressor like this.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
You can put the de-esser and then you tame those high frequencies, but you're gonna saturate those anyway. You know, just because of you high, oversalted something on your dish, it doesn't mean this piece of your dish will not be oversalted. Crazy on sibilances. On this dirty recorded vocal. Obviously, if vocal was muddy and too smooth, maybe it would be the best compressor on the vocal. They emulate transformer noise, which is coming from this compressor. 50 cycles if you connect 1176 in Europe, or 60 cycles if you connect your 1176 in Canada or the US. You know, so you have this extra noise. Actually, extra noise, in my opinion, sometimes feels nice, or nicer at least. Gives maybe a little bit more density to the tone.
Treating people just like pawns and chess. Treating people just like pawns and chess.
Without noise is definitely more detailed. But if vocal loud enough in the mix, you have no problem with details, so with this noise it's fine.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
From the other side, the problem with this noise, if you put this plugin on many sources in your mix, on drums, hi-hats, vocals, bass, all this noise is building up. If you insist on using this noise, my suggestion is put this plugin 5 times in a mix, choose only 2 the most important instruments in your project, and activate noise only on those. On all other instances of this plugin, turn the noise off. You can say, I'm gonna throw a gate. Gate works only when you create a silence. For example, you go treating people and you make a pause. Then gate will make this noise disappear. But how about background noise under treating people words? It still will be in your sound. And then still the same existing noise from other instrument, from other instrument, from other instrument. it can be a bit dangerous. It's not really those harmonics. Harmonics anyway exist in your compressor when you turn this noise off. Second harmonic, like on most Waves plugins, boosted. Again, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on your settings. Other harmonics are odd harmonics. So if you exclude from consideration second harmonic, third loud, fifth will be louder than fourth, seventh will be louder than sixth, and so on. It still has a lot of harmonics, more than my analog 1176s have in the high frequency range. Again, if you ask me, guys, what you need to do with all this information, you need somehow memorize what harmonics coming from where. I mean, if you super crazy psycho like me, maybe it will be helpful in some situations. When you can predict which compressor can be more suitable in some cases. But my main point, I want to show you how plugin manufacturers emulate their plugins in their own way, and I use harmonics just to prove my point, that these plugins sound pretty different, and they have their own sound. Waves sound in its own way, Universal Audio sounds in its own way, IK Multimedia sounds in its own way, Softube sounds in its own way, you know what I mean? I just want to show you that plugins not really authentic emulations. They inspired by real devices, and plugins are great mixing tools, but you should not trust blindly all this hype. Analog 1176 has harmonics like this. Universal Audio has gradually going down harmonics on most of their plugins, which is crazy. Waves have commonly prominent second harmonic, like almost indicator of Waves plugins. And then you have odd harmonics, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, 11th. Universal Audio also have plenty of high harmonics. Again, I'm not gonna say real tone of a compressor, just harmonics content. It's a dynamic coloration as well, because when note is quieter, it's a bit different structure. When note is louder, it's a bit different structure. And as even core structure of this plugin is not exactly the same, all this dynamic coloration also gonna be completely different. Also, you heard how Waves has high frequency roll-off. UAD plugin, it has much more density. Waves doesn't have density. So Waves not only different in coloration, EQ, and even tone-wise it sounds different. But more surprisingly, in some circumstances, Waves plugins, for some reason, you cannot even out vocals. Let me show you. I'm gonna use two compressors of the same kind. Consider first 4 syllables. Treating people.
Treating people.
All 4 equal.
Treating people.
With Waves.
Treating.
Treating.
Treating people.
Right, so seems like we need to increase release time, because it's like treating, so compressor comes back too quickly. I need to prolong release a bit. I prolong release a bit. Of course, it increases overall amount of compression. I need to compensate it on the input and output.
Treating.
So still treating.
Treating.
Even worse. It's not because of length of release, it's because of special curve of release, which is quite strange on Waves. I can try even longer release.
Treating.
Now it's even worse. Now 3 is overcompressed and 10 too exaggerated.
Treating.
I have no choice other than using release 7, the shortest release over here.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
Notice how the very last word, chess, 2 jumping out.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
While UAD plugin doesn't have this issue.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
Absolutely equal. You know, you may say, maybe this blackface version sucks. Let's try Cruiser LG 1176 Blue Stripe is his favorite compressor. I'm totally sure this plugin doesn't sound like his real analog one. And this compressor does actually also strange stuff on dynamics.
Treating people. Treating.
Treating.
Treating people.
You know, it's strange. When you use a compressor, you expect all notes to be more or less equal. Instead of this, it sounds like treating people. Second syllable jumping out. You know, again, I have to prolong release.
Treating people.
And it doesn't help, because curve of release still remains the same. Yes, I prolong it a bit, but this jump anyway exists. I can try to use shorter attack, of course. Also trading, and then 2 quiet people.
Treating people just like pawns and chess.
So fluctuations in one way or other way, so difficult to set up this compressor. The real one, Universal Audio waves, behave completely differently, and they all claim it's an authentic emulation of 1176. They are good mixing tools anyway, but I'm gonna call them rather like this. It's just unique plugin called X by Waves, sounds in its own way, it's inspired by 1176. It would be fair to say like this. Okay, Acustica Audio, one of my beloved company. A lot of people complain about Acustica Audio, like customer support, never fixing bugs on older products and stuff like this. But they use impulse response technology, right? I'm not gonna say it's 100% the same as analog devices. Plus, it really depends on how well this impulse response is made. There are many factors, and if all of them are considered and stuff like this, but on paper, this technology is supposed to be superior over emulations. I have this plugin, but let's be honest, I didn't even install it on my computer. And you like, what? You like this company, but you didn't even install this plugin which you already bought? And I say, yes, I didn't install it. I installed it, but I uninstalled it. Because in my opinion, it's probably one of the worst plugins of Acustica Audio. The whole concept behind it is bad. Check it out. The problem is this compressor is supposed to be very short attack. It's an instantaneous compressor which compresses transients. And then they offer you attack parameters from 5 milliseconds, the shortest, which is 6 times longer than the longest attack available on real 1176, and is their shortest. And then 70 milliseconds as the longest, while it's supposed to be 0.8 as the longest. The shortest on real 1176 is supposed to be 0.05, but they made it 5. When I apply this compressor on anything I want from the point of view of 1176, like vocal, it completely fluctuates. All these transients, clicky, punchy, it's so exaggerated. Let's say I want to buy 1176 emulation. I need fast attack compressor, period. This is what 1176 is. Acustica Audio creates just compressor, whatever they want with a long attack, and then they use 1176 name to promote the plugin. While this plugin has nothing to do with the real 1176. It has something to do, but let's be honest, it's custom made. It's modified to the very long attack. It's absolutely not what 1176 is about. And if Acustica Audio released this plugin and called it 1176 modified with the long attack X plugin, I would say, yeah, I will not buy it because I don't need 1176 with the long attack. But okay, you fair enough, you said 1176 inspired long attack compressor. But they call it 1176 based. The shame is when I contacted Acustica Audio customer support and asked them what's going on with this compressor, I hear strange long attack. They said, it's not 1176. And I said, what are you talking about? You even say it's 1176 in the manual. Now you roll back and say, no, it's not 1176, but I bought this plugin to get 1176. You know what I mean? They even say it all this in the manual. They say, Bill Putnam design. What is the most famous compressor of Bill Putnam? 1176? 1176, Revision H, which is silver face, and Revision LN, black face. This is LN over there. It even says LN over there on the plate. It's not 1176? What are you talking about? It even says legendary 60s, 1969, when Bill Putnam invented FET compressor. They even say it over here, FET compressor. Hands down, most popular compressor design of all time. So give me this design. Don't increase attack 100 times longer. So Acustica Audio, make 1176 please. I paid for 1176. We should ask Acustica Audio to make 1176 nickel version with update of a short attack. Another plugin based on 1176, Slate FG-116. They have black face and blue stripe as well emulation and some custom version. I don't have it on my computer as I don't use Slate plugins, but I was using Slate plugins to some extent back in the days. I remember very cool trick I found with this compressor. Actually, this compressor, black one, the standard one, sounds dirty. Because output knob is very dirty transformer emulation. So you always get some very strange sound with this compressor. So to make it more appropriate, you should put output knob to 12 o'clock, you minimize all this coloration, and then use anything else on your computer, like digital plugin, digital EQ, just to raise up overall volume. They quite good, but they have a bit fizzy highs. They very detailed, which is benefit. When they detailed and so like emphasized on the top, they good for MUD instruments. but bad for sharpness. If your instrument tends to be a bit too noisy or too harsh or something, eventually you get thinner and harsher sound. Again, it all depends on the setting, don't get me wrong. You can always compensate it a bit, but compensation is not 100% fixed. Blue Stripe compressor of Steven Slate, actually the thinnest I ever tried among Blue Stripe emulations. If you're looking for a compressor of this kind and you want the thinnest and the cleanest sort of version of it, it's definitely Steven Slate. From the other side, in the mix, it can sound a bit too small. From the other side, on the muddy sounds, it can shine, it can fix some part of muddiness. One of my beloved company always was Softube. I'm not gonna say they close to analog. It has pros and cons anyway, but definitely it's a serious company called Softube. First of all, they released these plugins which were shared with Native Instruments. They basically made those plugins for Native Instruments. So I'm gonna call it Native Instruments and Softube. And this compressor back in the days was absolutely crazy cool. Universal Audio.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Definitely brighter, definitely clearer than Universal Audio, less sort of, you know, a bit more straightforward and everything. Dynamic-wise, still pretty good, notes going evened out.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
To some extent, right? So, first problem, the needle is very slow. As I promised you, in this topic, we're not only gonna learn 1176 and everything, we're gonna learn a lot of subjects of audio production in parallel. Let's learn this thing. As Softube created this plugin for Native Instruments many years ago, they didn't update it. No anti-aliasing filter causes the problem. Your working range is from 20 to 20K. Your compressor creates a bunch of harmonics which go above 20K. As there is no anti-aliasing filter, all these harmonics above 22 boundary or 24K boundary will be thrown back as artifacts like this. And it can be dirtier. Again, to some extent, I don't mean it's too noticeable, but still, when you're audio engineer with a trained ear, you try to really recognize all these micro things, and it's important for you. Plus, don't forget, when you put all these harmonics, even if they are not so noticeable right now, later on you can put extra enhancers and all these artifacts will be exaggerated more. You boost high frequencies with the EQ and all these artifacts will be boosted more. You apply another compression, let's say on the master bus, and limiter during mastering to make your song louder, and all these harmonics will be more pushed, even more saturated, so you can put more artifacts to your sound. This compressor has many harmonics with a lot of high harmonics. So a lot of high harmonics. Then Softube releases the new version of it, FET Compressor 2. They personally believe is their best plugin in terms of compressors. So this compressor dynamically fluctuates. Somehow it becomes worse actually for dynamic control.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Pawn. It's the only compressor which for some reason emphasizes pawn. Every other compressor was making pawn quieter and like more equal.
Treating people.
It also goes like treating people and people like very quiet.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
You know, so I have to play with release. I increase release and then instantly seems like choking, you know. Treating people, like doing stuff like this.
Treating people just.
Very strange release curve, so I have to put to the shortest. Seems like I have to play with the tag. No, treating people.
Treating people.
You know, treating 2 times louder than people. What's going on?
Treating people.
Again, I'm not gonna play full, of course. After many minutes, you can find some proper settings. But you know what? When I need to even out vocal, I have digital compressors, which very flexible. They have all possible settings and I can find proper combination of settings. I use 1176s because this type of compressor is supposed to be doing very good job on their own, you know. Christopher LG have literally all his compressors in his studio in position attack 3, release 7, 4:1 ratio. he just throw instruments over there and they just sound right. So this was the point of using analog 1176. And this FET compressor is so capricious, so fluctuating. From the other side, tone-wise, this compressor, much clearer than predecessor. It has anti-aliasing filter. It has more functions. You can definitely play with coloration. You can apply right now some sidechain. Actually, I can address this fluctuation with the sidechain. I can make this compressor consider a bit higher range of frequencies rather than low frequencies, and it will be fluctuating just a bit less. So I use sidechain filter here.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Yeah, with sidechain I definitely can achieve much smoother performance.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
And again, let's be honest, how many people know what frequency to choose and how to apply this sidechain to make this compressor work on this vocal? I know it, but let's say other users of this compressor may just throw it with the standard settings and it will not be working for them. The next company is another company which I personally respect, and this is pretty shame that a lot of people don't put this company to the first positions in the rating of plugin manufacturers. They kind of lost their position in this field, I believe, to some extent. But their products, again, not perfect. They have a lot of different own things. Their emulations still have something which has nothing to do with real equipment, but they just sound good, They sound fatter, bigger. They fun to use. This Black 76 probably would be one of my favorite ones. I mean, among plugins. One thing to mention, all their emulations, or almost all their emulations, have very strange, unique nuance. Second and third harmonic is crazy exaggerated in comparison to all other harmonics. By ears, this compressor sounds like a bit less bitey. Maybe that's why it sounds a bit more pleasant or a bit warmer, who knows. Fundamental tone, and then second, third, like crazy, and then like fifth, seventh, like this. So odd harmonics, but second and third like super boosted. Dynamic seems like good. Dynamically it controls your nose pretty fine. So this is the compressor, 4-to-1, Universal Audio.
Treating people just like pawns and shares. Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Definitely less harsh, less bite on sibilances, a bit smoother also transition from note to note.
Treating people just like pawns and shares.
Let's summarize. So basically, IK Multimedia, second and third harmonic 2 boosted. Real one, only odd harmonics are boosted. A lot of plugins have a lot of high harmonics. Softube have a lot of harmonics, high harmonics. Analog just up to 8 harmonics, 3rd, 5th and 7th exaggerated. Universal Audio gradually going down harmonics. Waves, second always prominent, but other harmonics are odd ones. Waves have EQ roll off on the top and doesn't have density in the tone. Strange dynamic fluctuations on Waves plugin. Acustica Audio too long attack. Steven Slate potentially can be a bit too thin in the mix. Native Instruments, older plugin evening out great, new plugin fluctuates like crazy without inner sidechain. So as you can see, every plugin in its own way. Every plugin manufacturer also sounds in its own way. Most of plugins of IK Multimedia always has second and third harmonic very exaggerated. Waves always pushes the second harmonic. Waves always have a lot of bright top high frequency harmonics. It's crazy. I repeat my conclusion. Every plugin, it's by 70% plugin manufacturer and only by 30% the device they base their plugin on. Overloud create plugins for Superior Drummer, and they have 1176 plugin over there, which is not as warm as real 1176, but sounds kind of clear and definitely make drums more transparent, more tight. So not too bad. We definitely can say Lindell Audio, sorry if I spell it wrong. I don't use this 1176 compressor. I tried it, I kind of didn't like it because it was like those pixelized, like in a sound, who knows. To be honest, I didn't spend enough time with this compressor, so I cannot really criticize it or say it's good. Again, I'm here not to promote plugin manufacturers. I only showed you the main point. Every plugin manufacturer, even though they claim they make authentic emulations, they make their own product. which sounds in its own way, it modifies your frequency in its own way, it controls dynamics in its own way, and most importantly, it colors your sound completely in random different ways. We compared it with my two 1176 compressor over here, and they are very different from plugins. Bomb factory workhorse, old plugin, but like very versatile. You just throw it anywhere and it seems like works. Remember, this lesson about 1176 is very long. It takes literally lesson number 16 and lesson number 17. In this free video, I make it much more edited. I got rid of very unique and very important things which I really have to keep only for people who pay for these lessons. So one of the most important subjects, the thing you probably never heard of, that even though frequency response can be exactly the same, but you anyway feel more lows or less lows or more highs due to timing of how compressor influence your notes. It's in the full lesson, you can buy it. Save yourself 10 years and bust all myths of this snake oil field called audio engineering field. How to participate in my course you can read in the description or in the first pinned comment.